It's next up to the stage with a talk called How DeFi Goes Mainstream, bridging the gap between degens and regulators. Please welcome to the stage our friend, Zaki Manian.
Hello. How's it going? This is a very spread out room. How's it going? I'm Zaki Manian, co-founder of Sommelier Protocol. Do a bunch of things in blockchains. Clearly, this is a trying time in the markets. Sommelier has something that I think is compelling under these market conditions. So in general, I think we have experienced a real, so DeFi, which is a thing that people have been sort of dreaming about since 2015, became real in 2020. But it's pretty clear that both the way that the industry has presented itself to the public, to regulators, has been a little bit ineffective. So in many ways, we portray token holders, people who trade in the cryptocurrency markets, as sort of reckless individuals. And what the reality is that we are beta testing a lot of different pieces of software, smart contracts, L1s, consensus protocols, bridges, all of these things. If there weren't sort of large speculative returns for testing all of this stuff, no one would test it, and we would be in this kind of, we would be stuck with the legacy financial system forever. So I think one of the biggest things that we need to be, as a community, explaining to the world is what's actually going on is that we are incentivizing people to battle test complex systems under massively variant marketing conditions in a fully adversarial financial system. And what it produces is open source public infrastructure for everyone to use. That is the positive externality of this entire speculative era of cryptocurrencies. So as long as regulators still see what we are building as a casino, we aren't making any progress. But software only starts to work when people start to depend on it. And so this is the unfortunate tension we're in, and as we can see playing out in the markets right now. It is really not that interesting how all of these different systems and protocols perform in bull markets, but when there are economic attacks and denial of service attacks and panic sells in the market, this is when we learn what works and what doesn't. So this is, in many ways, an exciting time. The current way in which regulators engage with the DeFi space is regulation through enforcement. And this regulation through enforcement mechanism is incredibly counterproductive because we don't learn anything. No one is learning anything. No one is learning what our rules are, how the space should be regulated. We are only learning what attracts regulators' attention, what settlements can happen, and then everything is so backwards looking that by the time regulators get around to an enforcement action against something that failed at scale in cryptocurrency, the industry has moved on. So this basically has perverse effects everywhere, and this makes basically everything that's bad about our industry worse through the current sort of enforcement mechanism. So a more mature regulatory system would offer incentives rather than punishments. There is, and we largely, and regulators have failed to do this. They have failed to create an environment in which complying with rules, getting sort of self-regulatory processes running that work efficiently are paths to large markets. Instead, we see like teams that are able to raise a large amount of capital, getting access to large markets. We don't see effective regulators encouraging like effective self-regulatory practices around things like stablecoins. And in many ways, like this sets the stage for the crisis that we see around us today. So we're not yet in a world where meaningful regulatory conversations are happening. So as a builder, how do you build in a world like that? The way to build is still to reduce trust and manage your regulatory surface area. We don't have enough things in DeFi that are sort of self-certifying. Instead, we like rely a lot on trusted brand name sources for data, for interfaces, for wallets. There's too much trust in DeFi, and this is a significant sort of problem in our industry. So, reasonable question to ask. Okay, Zeki, like you have these points of view. What are you building? Sommelier is a DeFi idea I've had for many years. Started building it in sort of the end of 2020, like November, December timeframe. And we are finally about to launch it in its sort of full form. We've done some experiments that we have invited people to use in the past. But like actually a meaningful portion of the full vision is sort of ready to ship right now. So we are building a user interface that automates, the first product of which is going to automate an Aave seller. So a seller is an automated strategy. The user experience is a user locks funds on Ethereum. And then this non-custodial system actually manages how funds are deployed. And our biggest thing that we're trying to do is, again, reduce trust. We are building the first version of the system. We are building the first seller. But we intend the system to be a platform that people can white label, other projects can use for execution. You may be using a seller through, hopefully, a completely different user interface than the Sommelier website in the future. These are our goals. So we've sort of attempted to create well-defined roles for participation in the system that will be open to anyone. So seller creators, what is a seller creator? A seller creator creates a new smart contract that can aggregate several DeFi protocols together and rebalance. We have this idea of an off-chain strategist. This off-chain strategist has a proprietary system for choosing rebalances. And then we have validators on a Cosmos chain that are executing the rebalance functions as the strategists have sort of provide data to the validators about what rebalance to execute. So we've put a lot of energy into thinking about checks and balances in the system. We really want, so what we really want is, if you look back at all these rules, we want these to be independent parties. We want them to not have to come from one team. We want them to be able to be sort of changed sort of in motion, and we want there to be checks and balances between them. So SOM is the native token of our project. And it is the staking token of the Cosmos chain. It is a governance token. It will be used for like liquidity mining rewards. It is somewhat unique among Cosmos tokens in the sense that it is currently not inflationary. There is no built-in staking-driven inflation. So what do we think the checks and balances are? So SOM governance, SOM holders, and the validators are responsible for like vetting new sellers. And what are their incentives? Well, they get paid, because there are no staking rewards just from inflating the token, the only way they get paid as validators and SOM holders is if sellers are successful. So they are strongly incentivized to actually look at these sellers, make sure that they have an infrastructure that is profitable, that their sellers have been audited, that funds will effectively flow back to SOM token holders. This is the responsibility of SOM governance. And basically, if you are a participant in the SOM protocol and you don't do a good job of this, you don't get any money. So strongly incentivized to do that. We have these off-chain strategists because really, like you can't, there are limits to what can be done in terms of strategy automation on-chain. you can't, so if you like sort of leak all of the alpha, you'll like be quickly commoditized in the market. So what we want is people who are running sort of data science practices, people who are data providers, people who are running proprietary strategies for funds, or their own proprietary trading to bring strategies to market and like run the rebalancing for these seller contracts. But so assuming the first thing was successful, strategists can do a bad trade, but they can't actually walk away with users' funds. Those are still protected natively by the like the environment of the underlying L1, or the underlying Ethereum chain, which is our first chain that we're launching in. The other thing is validators can be like, hey, this strategist like consistently does a bad job. And someone else has shown up and communicated to the validators, hey, I can do a better job of running the seller. I can make you more money. I can make SOM holders more money if you use my strategy instead of the existing strategist who's running the rebalances for the seller. So validators can fire a strategy provider and replace them with a new one. And I think that's one of the things that makes Sommelier unique and is a thing that like we should be aiming for when we build blockchain protocols. It should be possible to fire any team in the system and replace them. It should be possible to change validators. It should be possible to change strategy providers. Too much of DeFi, I think, calls themselves a protocol, but like really it is just an assembly of people, and those people are largely static. And so all of this is coming on June 1st, and that's what Sommelier is, and that is hopefully an architecture. People see this as an architecture for taking what right now is common in DeFi, but custodial, and it's a magic box for making it non-custodial. I have 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. Does anybody have any questions? No? Cool. I'll give you. Hey.
Is in some way the Cosmos basis, so the Tendermint chain that is Sommelier, connected to the Ethereum where the actual execution is happening of the sellers?
The system is technically quite complex. There is a very nice Notion document linked off of the sommelier.finance website that goes into pretty solid detail about the system architecture. But right now, what we do is we use the Gravity, we use a sort of a specific to the chain, application-specific instantiation of the Gravity bridge to primarily not do token transfers, but to actually execute the rebalance logic on Ethereum and eventually other EVM-compatible blockchains. This isn't the only architecture for Sommelier, but and because things like interchain accounts and stuff like that are coming to Cosmos. But this allows us to kind of go where the TVL is and interact with Ethereum DeFi. Any other questions? You can just say your question. I'll repeat it. Okay, so the question was, why build our own blockchain? Honestly, as far as I can tell, there's no other way to do this. If you actually want to build a system where the different parties are all replaceable, it would be too expensive to coordinate all of this on Ethereum. If you were to do this on a single chain, or if you were to do this on like a cheaper EVM chain, you would be stuck on that EVM chain and not be able to reach out to all the DeFi opportunities that exist. It all seems like very fundamentally constraining. Now, the other argument is I have Stockholm syndrome. I've been working on building blockchains for 7 years. It is what I know how to do. And so that is a viable argument. But honestly, no one else has done this. And we are basically the first to do something like this. And if it works, it validates the whole architecture. 45 seconds. Cool. Thank you very much.